Thank you so much. Tejas is a wonderful person and also loves Sarah. Thank you all for being here, and I'm so happy to be here in Paris. This is the first time I've ever been outside of the airport in Paris, and so I'm very happy to be here. I arrived Tuesday morning, and I couldn't check into my hotel, so I left them my bags, and I went to Disneyland for 2 hours. Rode 3 rides, the most expensive rides I've ever ridden, but it was super fun. And then, yeah, I've just really enjoyed being here and seeing you lovely people. So I am going to be talking about the Vanishing network. The way that we build software has changed over the last few years, and we're going to take a walk down memory lane and kind of see what building software has been like. Really quick, how many of you have been building web software for over a decade? Okay, yeah. So some of this, for those of you who raise your hands, this is going to be like, oh yeah, I remember we used to do things that way. And some of you might be thinking, I'm still doing things that way. And for the rest of you, this will be kind of a history lesson. So this will be a lot of fun. I started developing software about just over a decade ago as a web developer. And so this is kind of my history in developing software. Before we get into that, though, I would like to invite everybody to please stand up wherever you are. If you're physically able to join us, I would like you to stand. This will get blood flowing in your body. This is good for you. You're going to put your arms out in front of you like this without touching the person in front of you. And then you're going to squat down and come back up. There we go. Yeah, now we're talking. This is an air squat. We're going to do 12 of these together. We're going to count out loud. Ready? Let's go. 1, 2, there we go. 3. And the nice thing is you can just go as low as you want, like really deep. I lost count. Let's start over. 1. No, just kidding. I think that's like 7. Is that 7? 8, 9, 10, we're so close, 11, and 12. Now stretch your arms up above your head as high as you can, and over to one side, and over to the other. There you go. Awesome. Good job. You can sit down. Thank you. This is good. This is getting blood going because our brains need blood. That's the one thing AI has over us. They only need electricity. We need blood to flow through our bodies. No, it's actually really good. This will help you retain information if you're ever feeling kind of like groggy or something. You just get your body moving, and then things will be better. All right, so time for a story. When I started over a decade ago in this industry, I was working at a company called Domo. They build business intelligence software. I actually thought I wanted to be a business intelligence engineer, so I was doing SQL and star schema and things. But then I got a job at an actual business intelligence company, and I realized, no, I actually want to develop the software. And so I got into the JavaScript side of things, totally fell in love, until they asked me to add this checkbox. And it wasn't actually this checkbox. They have redesigned the UI since I was there, and I never took a screenshot. But it was like this. It was on this page. You're building like a card for a view into the data. And yeah, there was a checkbox inside of a popover. It was very similar to this that I needed to add. So let's actually look at the code for that. So we're going to look at this in detail. This first part is setting up the model. And then down here, we're adding event handlers. No, it actually wasn't this at all. I generated that with AI. I did not copy that code. Don't talk to the Domo lawyers about me showing off their code. But it was like this. It was 2,000 lines of a Backbone base view. Who here has done Backbone? Yeah, okay, so you remember how views could extend from other views, and everybody loved to do that because it was awful. Yeah, so we had a 2,000 line long base view for this page, and then another like 1,000 lines for the model, and then another 1,000, I think it was another 1,000 or 1,500 lines for the actual view that extended the base view. It was a lot of code for driving this experience. So I want you to just make a guess how long it takes to add a single checkbox to that UI. Just throw it out there. 3 months? Wow. Yeah. How long? 2 weeks. Roberto says 2 weeks. Roberto got it. It was 2 weeks. Yeah. It was awful. It took me 2 weeks to add that checkbox. A checkbox. No, it wasn't 2 weeks to add the checkbox. What took 2 weeks? The checkbox was easy. You just find it in the HTML, you grep across the whole code base to find like some class name. Boom, found it. Put in an input type checkbox, easy. So what took 2 weeks? Understanding where to put it? Oh, that like in the HTML, like Backbone has templates. That wasn't too bad. What would be so hard for you? Or what do you think? Yeah, Roberto again. Yes, we're closer. Where else? State management, yes, even closer. I'll give you a hint. What's the title of my talk? The network, yes. So state management, yeah. Managing the loading of the data, so what should the checkbox be initialized to? And then when I save, how do I get the data that, like the fact that the checkbox was changed back to the database? Managing that relationship. That's why it took 2 weeks, because the model was all over the place, and also like I was an intern at the time. I probably didn't really understand Backbone very well. But yeah, I think that we can relate to this, and I think most of us would love for that network layer to just vanish from our code bases. And so we're going to go on a journey through the way that we develop software and see what's happening to this really complicated part of web development, which is the network. And so from here, I'm done with slides, and we're going to be here with my friend Cody. I just shocked the screen. I don't know if you saw that, but we're going to go through React and the Vanishing network, starting with the way that we used to develop for the web, and then how React came onto the scene and what that changed. Framework React with Next.js and React Router Remix, and then how we do things with modern React now. So here is our site, and here is the code that's serving that up. So we're using Hano.js, so you could do like Express or even Rails, whatever. But the idea behind the early phases of the web was that the backend generated HTML and sent it to the client. Right, so we're going to leverage our AI overlords here a lot, so I can type as fast as I possibly can. So we are going to get the count from the database, and then we're going to render a form. Here we go. Man, there we go. That has an action with a method post, and then have a button for incrementing and a button for decrementing. So there we go. We have our counter. So we're loading data right here, loading that data into the UI, and then we're making a mutation. But we got to handle that mutation, so let's add an API route for that. So this is going to handle the update count action that we have right here. We're going to get the form data from the request, turn that into a number because it's going to be a string. And then we're going to change the count by that amount, and then we'll redirect to the home page. Post redirect get. How many people know what this is, or why we do this? Yeah, okay, I'll give you the quick rundown for what post redirect get is. You know how when you're like on your banking site or on an airline site and stuff, and you're going through a flow to check out or get a ticket or something, and they say, don't hit the back button. And if you do, it has this little pop-up that says confirm resubmission. That's because they didn't do this. If they did this, then you could hit the back button all you want. That's as far as I'm going to go into it. Just ask ChatGPT, what does post redirect get about? It's just so funny to me that it's so easy to solve that, and instead they put all these messages, don't hit the back button. All right, internal server error. So totally messed up. Let's see, what I get wrong here? I've got there we go. Yeah, okay, I was a little bit worried about that. It did this a little differently. I think we need to await that. There we go. And it will need to wrap that. I'm going to say we need parentheses there. Thank you. Okay, confirm resubmission. And that is because, yeah, thank you. That is because we didn't get to my redirect. So there, that was intentional. Okay, great. So now we can increment, we can decrement. all day long. Everything is good. A couple of things that you'll notice about this, and things that our users noticed about this, is you'll notice we get a full page refresh every time we're incrementing and decrementing, which is like fine lots of the time. If you're going through like a checkout process or something, like having a full page refresh is not going to be a huge issue necessarily. But the types of apps that we wanted to start building over time involved a lot more mutations than just like, all right, I'm going to fill out this giant form and then hit submit. At which time, like a full page redirect, okay, fine. But like if you're liking a post on X, do you want a full page refresh? No. How many posts would you like if you had to do a full page refresh? And then like focus management was a big pain, lots of problems. And so we needed to have some code in the front end on the client so that we didn't have to do this whole redirect flow with all these requests. And so that's how we went from the multi-page app era, which at the time wasn't called multi-page app. It was just like building a website. But we have to make up a name for this stuff now. And so now we call that a multi-page app. And we went into this next era that I made up. Nobody calls it this, but I do. It's called the PEMPA, the Progressively Enhanced Multi-Page App. So if the browser supports JavaScript, then we can give the user a much better experience. And so here I'm going to update all of our code to prepare us for the PEMPA architecture. So what the PEMPA architecture does is it adds some JavaScript to the client. So the first thing I want to do is down here, we're going to make it so our server can serve code from our UI directory. We're going to put a JavaScript file in there so that we can have that be handled or handle stuff on the client. And then I need to be able to connect the JavaScript that we have loaded into the browser with the HTML that we're sending along in the browser as well. So we're going to add an ID to our H1 because we need to update that dynamically. And then we're also going to add an ID to our form, so we can add an event handler for that. And we're going to wrap our buttons inside of this counter buttons because we're going to do some cool progressive enhancement stuff. So there already, because we have, we're now kind of taking ownership of the network. We now have to add a bunch of code to be able to do that. Before, we didn't need to have IDs and everything. There's no indirection. The browser handled all of the network stuff. We had very limited network-related code. Like maybe the form action you could kind of consider as network-related because you've got that the URL, so you have to think about the network a little bit there, but not a whole lot. The browser kind of took care of a lot for us. And now we're already starting to have to change our code a bit so that we can manage that ourselves. So we also, this is technically network-related code as well. We have to say, I have this asset, so browser, go grab that asset so that we can serve that on the page and make this a progressively enhanced experience. So that takes care of our HTML. We'll come back to this. If something breaks and I'm like, wait, what happened? It's because I didn't do this yet. But I want to get to that part when we get there. Let's just start by having an alert, hello world. Actually, you know what we're going to have it say? We're going to say, you done been hacked. Do you want to know why I'm doing this? Because when I was at Domo, I was given a task of fixing a cross-site request or a cross-site scripting vulnerability in our chat app that was on the right side of every single page. And so as a developer, you're going to reproduce the bug, and I decided to reproduce it in production. And so I made a chat that had alert, you done been hacked, and everybody in the company started getting you done been hacked on every page for an hour because we hadn't implemented delete on that chat yet. Oh, that was so awful. I was so embarrassed. So we're going to go with you done been hacked. And there we go. We have JavaScript on the page. We can now be hacked. And so we're good. We can start interacting with the DOM. So we're going to say document add event listener. And then we're going to, when the document is fully loaded, then we're going to go find that counter form. We're going to add a submit handler to that, prevent the default behavior. This right here, this is what makes where we say, hey, browser, I know that you are responsible for handling form submissions, but I'm going to take that from you. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it worse, frankly. But we're doing this for a reason, right? Like this, we're not just doing this because we like to write code. we're doing this because the user experience needs to be improved. And so, like, there's a reason behind all of this, but it is kind of a pain, if we're being honest. So anyway, we're going to take the form, create form data out of it. We actually also need to handle the submitter, so like which button is pressed. So if there is an event submitter, we're going to add that to our form, but to our form data. This is something the browser does automatically. This is the sort of thing that if you were writing this naively, you might not think about. Like, how many of you, this is the first time you've heard of the submitter on an event? Yeah, like, it's not something that we typically do, and this is why we use libraries, because then one person can know all of that stuff and suffer, and the rest of us can just enjoy that. So anyway, we're going to add that submitter so we know which button was pressed. We're going to make a fetch request to that action, whatever that was, with the form method, and we're going to send the form data. And then we're going to add a try around actually this whole thing. And yeah, well, we can console error that. And then we'll get the data back. So here we're going to, because now we want to do this from JavaScript, we need that API to return JSON. Remember, before it was post redirect get. And so this response right now is going to give me a redirect, but I can't use a redirect in JavaScript. That's not useful to me. I actually need to know what is the new value so I can update the count. So now we have to go and update this. So our back end is suffering because our front end has to do some progressive enhancement stuff. But the thing is, because this is progressive enhancement, we can't rely on the fact that this API is always going to be called as from the JavaScript. We could make a separate endpoint just for the JavaScript, and a lot of people did things that way. We're not going to do that. We're going to actually make this a little bit more dynamic. So we're going to get the updated count, and then we're going to say if the request header accepts text HTML, well, then that's the browser making that request, so we'll just redirect it like we were before. Otherwise, we'll assume it's our JavaScript, and we'll send back the count. And then with that now, we have our data, and we can render out the count data. So we'll update our count text content. If there's an error, we're not doing errors, not in this. There are never errors, and so great. This should work now. I refresh, increment, decrement, and you'll notice there's no full page refresh, and this means that focus management is easy. I'm not going to worry about losing focus. You could have made that work with the MPA, but nobody ever did, and it's not easy either. But now it's just like natural. So this is nice. This is an enhanced user experience. But here's one thing that we lost. Remember when, with our previous version, when you would hit increment, you'd get a spinner in the favicon? And so there's feedback to the user that, yes, I see you. I know that you did a thing. Just give me a second. But see now, if I'm on a slow network connection, like a 3G, and I hit increment, our users don't have the network tab open. They don't know that we're processing the request. So now we have to do even more. Now, again, what we're about to do is much better than what we used to, or just having a spinner in the favicon. But again, it's just more stuff that we have to do ourselves. And that is not fun. So that's where we bring in our counter buttons. And right here, before we send this response, we're going to set the opacity, and then we'll add a finally right here. So whether or not it fails, we just always want to restore that back. I'm looking for David Khorshid over there, because he's looking at this and like, man, this would be so much better as a state machine. But yeah, so now if I slow us down, then we have some sort of pending state going on right there. So the user gets some feedback, and this is better than before. So initially we made it worse, but now we add a little bit more code, and now we can actually make it better, and this is why we did it. This is why we added JavaScript in the browser, because we wanted a better user experience. It's not just because we were having fun or whatever. Maybe you were having fun doing this. I like writing JavaScript, but it's so that we can have a better user experience. But now let's look at what the developer experience is like. What did we have to do? Well, this entire file has to exist, for one. We had to update our server to serve some HTML that we can hook into. And here's an interesting thought. What if our product manager gets really excited and is like, I want an exclamation point after this. I want them to be so excited about their account that they're just like, woohoo, exclamation. So you add the exclamation point. Great, ship it to production, we're all happy until that PM tests it out and says, what happened to my exclamation point? There's like a delay. Mine says count 2, and that says count 1. Is that? Huh. Has it been that slow like this whole time? That delayed? No? Okay. I'm going to click. Okay, yeah, good. It's not that slow. It's actually quite fast. So, what happened? What happened to my exclamation? If I refresh the page, everything's good. But it's only when I do that. What's going on? Throw it out. I forgot to update the JavaScript on the client. Well, that's annoying. But I guess it's not that big of a deal, right? Because it's just one thing. Imagine this at the scale of the apps that you build. Like, how many counter buttons do you have in your app? And this was a big problem. So what the core problem here is that we've got the same template in the client as well as on the server. And so anytime you needed to make a change, you had to do it in both places. You had to make sure that you update the DOM in the exact same way as the HTML generated from the server would have. And there are some apps that we use today that are actually constructed like this. One of them is GitHub. And I have run into bugs where I would do something on the client and then I hit refresh and it's a totally different UI. So this is still a problem that people who build apps this way experience. Not fun at all. It is awful. So for this reason, here's a solution. What if we just delete this and only do UI stuff in the UI code? And that is a single page app. So let's do that. Let's move on. Let's go to our single page app phase of development. So moving to early React spa days. Kind of skipping a couple of things because we had like Backbone and Angular and all that stuff, but we're going straight to React because where are we? We're at a React conference. You've been here for 45 minutes and we're finally going to start talking about React. So what we do in a React application is we say, nuh-uh, the server is not in charge of rendering the HTML. We're going to actually move all that to this index HTML in our public directory. Boom, we just moved it all. So now, instead of returning HTML, we're going to return JSON. And let's make sure that we actually serve our public directory so we can serve our index HTML. And this one's kind of fun. So now our server is configured, or maybe our CDN is configured, where if it can't find any matching thing, we'll just send it a 200, which is wrong. If you can't find a match, then that's a 404. But we're going to send a 200 because our client is doing routing, and who knows, maybe it does match. And so we've eliminate proper status codes, which made our search engines just love that a lot. And so our SEO tanks. But like, I'm behind a login screen. I don't care about SEO. Okay, yeah, that's fine. We'll talk about user experience later. Yeah, so we're going to get rid of that. Our update count, hey, this is great. I don't care about progressive enhancement anymore. And so heck with this form data nonsense. We're going to send JSON. And now, instead of form data, we're going to call this our body, our JSON body. And then, no, we don't need to do redirect stuff. No more progressive enhancement. Look at how much that cleaned up my backend. And now I'm just using like a REST API. I could like build a tool to generate a REST API based on my database schema. Like, wow, this is awesome. From the developer's perspective, the backend just got a lot simpler. And now it's just the front end that gets to do all the fun stuff. And so here, we're going to be doing our like reducer stuff to handle all of this. So let's, because we're not using React query. Sorry, Dominic, wherever you are. But we're gonna raw dog this ourselves. We're gonna add cases for our update start and our update success and our error. They actually ends up being the exact same responses, all of that. This is probably pretty familiar for lots of you, just like handling all of these different states that it could possibly be. And of course, there are definitely no bugs in there at all. And then we have our count reducer right here. We're going to have our count and our loading state, which is a Boolean. Sorry, David. And then we have our use effect. Again, sorry, David. And we're going to, actually here, let's do, fetch count, dispatch our fetch start, and handle the error. And we've got a syntax error somewhere. Oh, yeah, here we go. So, sweet. Fetch, dispatch the start, make the request to the count backend, get the data response back, and dispatch the success or dispatch the error. Cool, yeah. All right, we can, that's good. So when we initialize, we're going to get that data. And then we also need to handle updating. So coming back down here, get our data and dispatch all that stuff. So we're going to say update start so we can have our loading state and stuff, and then get our fetch request to update the count with a method post in our JSON body, application JSON. And then we get the response, so we get the updated count, which is great. Okay, cool stuff. And then let's make sure we handle our loading states. So if we're loading and the count is null, then we're going to show loading. Otherwise, if the count is not null, we'll just show the old count. That's fine. And then show an error state if there's an error. That's nice. Oh no, who deleted the form for us? Oh yeah, we don't care about progressive enhancement. So we're just going to put click handlers on divs and stuff. No, we still care about accessibility. So we're going to put them on buttons. But this is our beautiful React stuff. And that took a second. All right, no, but we're good. We're good. Awesome. And we even have like our pending stuff still happening. So we're good, right? The user experience is exactly the same. No, it's not. The user experience changed quite a lot. So I'm refreshing the page. I'm on a slow connection, and I'm just looking at nothing while that JavaScript loads. I'm on a train. Loading. There we go. Okay, we got it. Good. It does finally work. Look at that waterfall. It's pretty waterfall. No, it's ugly because all of those should be over to the left, but they're not. And this is the way that we have been building software for the last, it depends on when you started. I was doing a SPA a decade ago with Backbone. And yeah, okay, maybe you're behind a login screen. People don't come to your app like, most of your users are people who come to your app all the time. They're on a fast network connection. So maybe, yeah, you don't care so much about that user experience. But I'll tell you what, that executive that pays like $20 million for your app really hates using your app when they're in China and they're just on a bad connection because they're roaming. And yeah, it stinks for that executive. But they're used to it because we've trained them to be used to that terrible experience. But beyond that, what about us? This stinks. Look at that. And this is why React Query was invented, because this is the worst. There's a lot of network code that we have to worry about here, and there are bugs in here. And it would be nice to not have those. Handling all of this is not fun. But our backend devs, or the backend half of ourselves, didn't have to worry about that problem we had with the Pempa and like keeping templates in sync. So, win-win. We're not even using Webpack in here, so like we're going to just pretend that never happened. Things are much better now. Vite is amazing. Webpack is actually a lot better than it used to be, but yeah, it's I don't want to be ungrateful for all the amazing people who got us to where we are now, but it sure is better now than it was then. So yeah, we have like some problems with the user experience. We have a ceiling of the user experience that we can expect. So we're going to move on to what I call the PESPA. Nobody calls it this. I've never heard anybody call it this, but I do. It's the Progressively Enhanced Single-Page App. So what if we could, remember, like going back to the Pempa, the problem, like the user experience was fine. The problem was keeping our templates and our from our backend and our front end in sync. But what if we could just use the same template for both of them? And that's what the PESPA architecture is all about. So not only using the same template, but also still making it so regular form submissions will work. So before the JavaScript loads, maybe that executive is on some island somewhere, and they only have enough connection to download the HTML in 5 seconds, and the JavaScript is on its way, but they submit the form ahead of time. It should still work. That's the idea there. And so let's move on to the PESPA architecture. And this is all fake. I'm doing, like, everything that we've been writing has been like bundler free and compiler free and everything. It's all just like raw stuff. So this isn't what React Router v7 actually looks like or anything, but it's kind of similar, and hopefully it gets the idea across. So here we're going to have a loader. This piece is going to run just on the server. And so we're going to say, I want my database in my loader. And let me get that count. And then this piece right here will run on both. So it generates our HTML at the start, and then it hydrates on the client so that we can have interactivity in here as well. Whoops. And we're going to get our count from used loader data. So we have our data right here that's loaded on the server. During the server render, it gets that from that used loader data, and then it also sends that data along to the client so that our browser side code can access that same data and render the same thing. So if we save this, refresh, I'm still on a slow network. Let's just turn that off. Sweet. So our count is 0. That's good. So data loading is handled. And then we're going to handle mutations now. So let's do our fetcher. And we're going to use a fetcher form. So this is a special kind of form that's progressively enhanced. It prevents defaults and does the same thing that the browser would do. But if the browser hasn't finished loading the fetcher code yet, then server renders a form, and so the form will just work as it's supposed to as well. And so, and this is basically the way that Remix works, or React Router v7 now works, is progressively enhancing things so that they can work without JavaScript. Now, of course, like, there are a lot of reasons we want apps that can only really work with JavaScript. Can you imagine Figma without JavaScript? I actually can, because somebody built one and it was pretty interesting, but they didn't, yeah, we don't want to take that too far. Figma is pretty amazing. You need JavaScript in the client. But the really cool thing is there's a lot of stuff that if we model things in this way, we can drastically simplify things, and I'll talk about that in a second. So here our action also only runs on the server, so we're able to access our database. We take that form data, and actually this looks kind of similar to what we had before, right? Like, this is the same post request thing that we're handling in our MPA. Okay, I think that, yeah, I think we're, let's also, our fetcher also can give us some progressive enhancement for our pending state, which is quite nice. This is one of the reasons why we actually do want to have JavaScript in the client. What the devil? All right, we forgot to numberify that guy. Here we go. Whew, oh, it's close. Yeah, it's like, yeah, PESPAs, sorry, there are no numbers in PESPAs. So now I want you to look for the network code, right? That's what we're doing here in this talk here, is like following what happened to the network code. Where is the network code in this code? There is, like, sort of, we have this action right here pointing to the counter. So that, like, I guess, there's not really a lot going on here that involves the network. When it comes to React Router or Next.js, or there is some indirection with, like, the fact that things are scoped to routes, and so, like, that kind of, maybe you could think of that as network code. But, like, and then I also, even in my server still, I do have to handle including the script tags, and here's, like, that initial data. But the framework is doing that for me. So, like, where's my network code? Like, the network code does have to exist, but the framework can do that for me. My network code is, like, pretty minimal. There's just a little bit of indirection, but it's mostly pretty good. But we can do even better and get rid of that indirection. And that is what modern React gives us. So here now, we're going to be doing React Server components. And I need to actually restart the server because some funny stuff that we're doing here. Here we go. Okay. So this is going to break because we are doing a couple of interesting things. But first, this update count function. In fact, this entire file is server only. This doesn't go to the client. This file does not go to the client. This update count is talking to the database, and I want to expose that so that it's callable by the client. So I'm going to add use server. And that means that I can call this update count function from the client. What that means, though, is that I actually can reference it in code that goes to the client. This is pretty interesting, and there's a lot I could talk about, like going deep into how that works. And it's very interesting and cool. We don't have time for that. I have an entire workshop where we build this, how we make all of this stuff work. So if you want to go through that on Epic React, be my guest. But this is actually really cool. What happened to that indirection? There's no indirection. It's direct. Here's this form. When it's submitted, this form will call this function. That's pretty cool. The framework makes that work, and it's awesome. Let's make sure that we're handling things properly. And we also are going to want to bring in our database. Let's read from that database to get the count. And we'll take care of the pending div here in just a second. Yeah, there we go. Increment, decrement. That network code is just vanished. There's no indirection. There's no network code. Everything is self-contained. Now, some people are like, yeah, that's PHP, right? It sort of resembles PHP a little bit, except that I can do this. Remember, there's a reason we went from what we were doing before, which included the way PHP used to do things, to where we are now, and that's because we wanted to have a progressive enhancement experience that didn't involve duplicating templates, and we want to remember how I had to add all those IDs all over the place so that I could access it from my interactive bits. That wasn't fun. What if somebody changes the ID or something? They didn't realize that those, like you'd have to actually run the tests or something, or you'd have to have tests to discover that problem happened. But so with React Server Components, what I can do is just use a component. So here's pending form. This is interactive stuff. So when that form is submitted, I can use this use form status hook. I need to say, hey, we're going to be running this thing in the client. Create a little bundle for me. This code needs to go to the client. And now I can get my pending state for whatever form I'm rendered inside of and style things according to that. So I can take this stuff that only runs on the server, import stuff that only runs on the client, or it could also server render. So it's kind of a funny, like, use client, but it actually can run on the server if it's server renders, which in our case it does. But I can render that right here. And again, no indirection. There's no IDs I have to wire up or anything. I've just got my div. And I render that component. And now, if I am running on a slow network, I get the progressive enhancement, but I also get reduction of duplication. I also get the fact that none of the code to generate this HTML has to go to the client. And so I'm reducing the amount of stuff that needs to go to the client, potentially making things much, much faster. And then, like, let's not even mention all of the really cool stuff we get with out-of-order streaming with suspense and all of the other really cool things that we get out of this. We're in a really, really good place. And it does kind of take a little bit of a change of our brains of how things work. And so I know, like a lot of you, myself included, I was very skeptical of React Server Components for a long time and just like, I'm not sure that this is a good direction. But watching one of the hardest parts of building for the web all of this time was the network code, having to deal with that and the cache. And that's why we have all these libraries for this. But now we don't have that. Like it's just the framework is going to take care of all of it for us. And React Router is my framework of choice. I love it. It was the evolution of Remix into React Router v7. And it will very soon have React Server Component support. And I'm very excited about that for even pushing the disappearance of our network code even further. And I'm really grateful to the people who work on these projects, the React team, the React Router team, the Remix team. and the team at Vercel with what they've been doing with Next.js and Astro and all of these different frameworks that have been pushing us into a better direction and a better future. And it's super, super cool. Very happy to say goodbye to all this network code. And that's it. That's all I have for you. You're all super. Thank you very much.